What's going on YouTube? It is Repulse, back in another video. In today's video, we have our first match preview for the Premier League season. It is game week 1 of the Premier League, and Chelsea face Crystal Palace in the opening day of the Premier League at home. It's a 2 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. If anyone's attending, let me know down in the comments. But yeah, this is our match preview for the Chelsea versus Crystal Palace game in the Premier League to kick things off and start the season. Yeah, I think, a really intriguing fixture. Obviously, Crystal Palace won the FA Cup as well as the Community Shield just last week. Chelsea are coming off a Club World Cup and Conference League, so both teams won 2 trophies. And, now they face each other in the opening day of the Premier League season. In terms of injuries, we know Lavia's out. We know Badiashile's out. We expect Wesley Fofana to only be able to play around a half. And then Trevor Chalobah is perfectly fit. In terms of Crystal Palace, I don't know if they have any injuries, but I do know that Eze is likely not to feature tomorrow because he's focused on moving to Tottenham. So, big boost for Chelsea if Eze is not in that matchday squad. But yeah, if we go in terms of what I think the lineup will be for Chelsea versus Crystal Palace, we can see that um, I went with the traditional lineup. I went with Cucurella, Chalobah, Towson, and Reece James in the back line. I forgot to touch on injuries. Levi Cole is obviously injured, but I thought most of us would know that, so completely skipped my mind. But yeah, Levi Cole was not able to feature. He tore his ACL, for those who do not know. So that's why Chalobah and Towson are my center half pairing. For the midfield three, I went with the usual Enzo, Caicedo, and Palmer advanced. On the wings, I went with Gittins, and then I actually went with Pedro Neto instead of Esteval. I think Maresca is just going to trust Neto more to start this game. I think Esteval will come on, and I'll touch on that later in this video. But I do think to start, at least Neto deserves a spot in the team with how well he's uh, played throughout the Club World Cup, played in the preseason. I think he's definitely earned his spot on the team to be on the team sheet to start the season. So yeah, he starts on the right wing. Gittins gets his debut starting on the left wing. Obviously, we only have him and Tyree George, so not much competition there. And I thought Gittins looked very bright when he played in the preseason, so I think he definitely deserves a shout to be on the team sheet to start next game. And I think that is why he started versus AC Milan, is because we do anticipate him starting in the fixture versus Crystal Palace, because this was the same exact lineup we used against them. Same lineup we used against AC Milan, sorry. And I expect us to use that same lineup against Crystal Palace with João Pedro up top. I think, he's proved himself. 5 goals in 5 games, pretty much a nailed-on starter on the team sheet as of now, and he's only been here for a couple of months now. Came in during the Club World Cup, obviously lit that tournament on fire when he came in, and I expect him to start. And, hopefully score a goal. In terms of how we look in possession, the way I did it, I inverted Cucurella. I think this is what Maresca will opt to do because I think Towson is our only true central center half. I think Chalobah is someone that can play on that left center back side. We saw that against Bayer Leverkusen when Josh Achampong actually looked bright in that central center half position. I think he looked decent there, so maybe we see him come on, which I'll touch on later in this video as well. But yeah, I put Towson in the central center half position because I think he's the best passer of the ball of the center back options that we do have. I think he's the one that can progress the lines better, so it'll help us out in possession a lot more. Basically, the right-footed Levi Colwell with a little bit more aerial presence, just not as good defensively or finding those passes. But he can do a job there. He has his role, and I think he will do his role very well to start the season. But I do fully expect us to go in for a center back, and there will be a video out maybe later today, maybe um, after the game tomorrow, touching on Maresca's comments in that press conference he had that Standard Sport reported. But yeah, that's our back three. Then we have our midfield pivot of Caicedo and Cucurella. You know, Caicedo going to wreak havoc. Cucurella maybe gets in those advanced positions, which allows Enzo or Palmer to drop. So we have our, square midfield of Cucurella, Enzo, Palmer, and Caicedo. I expect Palmer to play on this right-hand side to start the season. And then, you know, pretty much stay there the entire season, especially if we get Xavi Simons through the door, because I think Xavi Simons will take up this position that Enzo does, or this position that Gittins does, which means Cucurella goes that way, and Xavi comes in. But yeah, pretty much a front four, advanced four of Enzo Palmer and then Neto and Gittins on the wings playing those touchline positions, and then João Pedro up top, obviously. I think someone that's going to be very good for Chelsea this season. I think going to be in consideration for top goal scorer for the squad. But yeah, Not really much to touch on the Crystal Palace side. I don't really know what they'll do. Haven't really made any signings this window. About to let go of Eze, so I don't know who that replacement will be. Obviously, they have Mateta, they have Wharton, they have Chris Richards, they have Henderson at goalkeeper, so they have a very solid squad. Obviously, Oliver Glasner is a great manager, so I expect him to set them up well to counter Chelsea. But I think Chelsea do have a lot of quality on the pitch, especially if we go out with this lineup. And if you want to go to the subs, I did my prediction of who I expect to come on in the game tomorrow. Um, the only one that I was debating was putting on Asugo. Or Josh. I was between Josh and Asugo, but I think Maresca. If we're up, he's just gonna want to rest the center backs because obviously they're gonna be playing a lot. With the limited options that we do have as of now, I think West can only play um 45 minutes. Badiashile's hurt, so that's already two center back options down. You already have Levi Cole down, so that's three out of your six there. You have Trev, Towson, and Josh as of now. So I expect Maresca to take that into consideration and give one of Trev or one of Towson rest. And that's why I put Josh at that central center half position. And I think he gives Cucurella a rest. Obviously, played 5,000 minutes last season. And now that Hato is in, I expect him to be able to give Cucurella some rest and put Hato in those positions that Cucurella can play. And Hato looked bright in the preseason doing that, so I'd be intrigued to see him come on against Crystal Palace tomorrow. If he does actually end up doing that, but a player I'm really high on, a player I'd really like to see feature. Other than that, I put Santos in instead of Enzo. Um, Enzo didn't play all too much this preseason. I don't know if there was something lingering with him or anything bothering him. Not too sure on that, but it seemed like Santos was getting a good amount of minutes in the preseason, maybe getting him ready for the season. So if he's playing that much, I do kind of expect him to come on in the game versus Crystal Palace for Enzo and play those advanced positions, but also interchanging with Hato, which allows Santos to intercept the ball, which he was actually very good at throughout the preseason and throughout the Club World Cup in doing so. And then you see on the right wing, Esteval gets his debut, comes off the bench. I think Neto does deserve his nailed on spot at the right wing position, but I do fully expect Esteval to start because every game he's played, he's looked bright. He's looked like a very, very good player. Um, you know, Touchline winger, able to play in the 10 as well. So if you want to give Palmer a rest and, put Esteval on, I think it depends what the score is by the time you want to bring Esteval on, whether or not, he comes in for Palmer or comes in for Neto. But yeah, really, really good player, really exciting player. Really good young talent. I expect Maresca to take the pressure off of him. If we're up, he brings him on. Even if it's a tie game, I expect him to bring him on as well. But don't have that pressure of starting your first ever game, or well, competitive game, in London at Chelsea in the Premier League. I don't expect him to just throw him to the wolves and start him the first game. I expect him to nurture him a little bit and play Neto, but I expect him to come on and make a big impact. And then up top, I have Liam Delap coming on for João Pedro. Seems like a nailed and sub. Throughout the season, it feels like Delap's going to come on pretty much every game that we have the chance to play him. Because I think he is a great sub option. I also think he's a great starting option. It's just that João Pedro has absolutely lit the world on fire, and that's why Delap isn't starting. But Delap is a great option at that striker choice. Someone that I really, really like. Scored 2 goals against AC Milan. Really tidy finish for the fourth one, penalty for the third one, but really good striker, really complete striker, and a lot more technical than people give him credit for. So, I expect him to come in every game that he does play, make an impact. I don't think he's considered a bench player at Chelsea. I think he's considered a rotational player that's gonna start a good amount of games this season. Obviously, João Pedro does have, I think, a little bit of an injury history, or maybe that was just a Brighton problem. But I do expect the Lap to start a good amount of games this season in the Champions League as well as the Premier League. So I expect him to come on. In terms of score prediction, what do I have? I have Chelsea winning 3-1 in this fixture. I have Crystal Palace scoring the Mateta goal. I expect that to be the third goal in the game. I expect Chelsea to get two, Crystal Palace to get their first goal, and then Chelsea to seal it off. And the way I see it happening is Cole Palmer scores our first goal of the season, then João Pedro scores our second, then Palmer scores our third again, and that wraps up a 3-1 win to secure 3 points for Chelsea, headed into match day 2, where I believe we play West Ham, which is actually on my other screen because they're playing Sunderland, and I want to see how Sunderland look in the Premier League. 0-0 right now. Sunderland actually look like a decent side, but yeah. I expect Chelsea to win 3-1. I expect it to not be very competitive. I expect Chelsea to pretty much run rampant on Crystal Palace. I think, Chelsea have been an excellent side throughout the Club World Cup, throughout the preseason, throughout the end of last season. So I expect that to, carry into this season. I expect Chelsea to push up the Premier League table and, maybe finish higher than fourth with that, which I actually predicted for them. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and, we'll see how the game goes tomorrow, and there will be a match review on that. So yeah, if you did enjoy this video, again, I just said it, but please be sure to like, subscribe. It does mean a lot to me. And as always, it's Repulse, and I'm out. Peace.